Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name is Brian. And now, let's talk about some more 4Ks. And these two in particular are recent releases from Kino Lorber, Studio Classics. And they are well-regarded and well-remembered films. Very different films. The first one will be Death Wish from 1974. And this one, of course, stars Charles Bronson in one of his most iconic roles as architect turned vigilante Paul Kersey. And this is a character that I would say follow him, but obviously he had the choice to make some of these films, but he made a ton of films as this character. There are at least 5 Death Wish films. Are there 6? I can't remember now. But I'm particularly fond of Death Wish 3, which definitely has a Blu-ray. I would love to see a 4K of Death Wish 3. That said, what's intriguing about this is that it was 52-year-old Charles Bronson's 57th film, I think. It was really far into his career, and obviously he would, like I said, make a habit of playing this character, and it would be a big part of his legacy in a way. But it was a sort of surprise hit, I think, in 1974. It was originally set up at United Artists for Sidney Lumet, who wanted to cast Jack Lemmon, I guess. But he dropped out to make Serpico, and then the producers offered it to Michael Winner. But after several name actors, including Henry Fonda, turned the film down, UA dropped the movie. And so then the producers took it to Dino De Laurentiis, and Michael Winner had worked with De Laurentiis and worked with Bronson. They'd worked together previously on Bronson and Michael Winner had worked together on Chato's Land, The Mechanic, and The Stone Killer. Stone Killer was produced by De Laurentiis. And all those films made money, something like a combined $50 million at the time, which was a big deal and a lot of money in the early 70s. But so with Bronson attached, Winner took the project to Dino De Laurentiis, and De Laurentiis had Bronson under contract for one more movie, and they were able to raise the $3 million budget, including Bronson's $1 million fee, by pre-selling foreign territories, and then Paramount purchased the domestic distribution rights. So it's not independently produced, but it's it was sort of a studio pickup in a way. And the film would go on to gross more than $20 million, which was, a solid hit at the time. But the basic story, for those that don't know, is about this architect in New York. We see him with his wife on the beach, I believe in Hawaii, at the beginning of the film. They come back to New York, and it's that really ugly, dangerous New York, with muggers and criminals everywhere, and it is just a really bad, rough place to live. Based on the movies, when I was a kid living in the Midwest, seeing the 70s movies, you're just like, man, you don't want to go to New York. You're going to get mugged every day going to New York. You can't walk the streets at night in New York. And, I don't know how accurate that was, but obviously there was crime in New York at the time. But this film in particular caught my attention and kind of turned me into a Charles Bronson fan, because the idea is that he is this architect and his wife and daughter are brutally assaulted by some really awful hoodlum thug types, one of which is portrayed by Jeff Goldblum in a really early role. Very scary to see him in this context, because I'm such a big fan of Jeff Goldblum, and he's just so ugly and awful as this character. And apparently the novel this is based on didn't, or at least the script maybe didn't include the assault in it originally, but Michael Winner felt it had to be shown, and it was probably one of the most brutal assault scenes and rape scenes shown in a movie, at least a mainstream film at that time. And Michael Winner believed that he had to show it because in order for people to later sympathize with Charles Bronson to hit the streets and start killing people, which he does, that you had to really hate the people that did this. And on that level, it's manipulative, but it works, and you do sympathize with Kersey and his plight, because his wife is ultimately killed in this assault, and his daughter is rendered completely traumatized. So it's really destroys his family. And the other part of the story is that after the assault, he goes out to Arizona, where he meets a character played by Stuart Margolin, who is a big rancher type guy, real estate guy, but he's also a very pro-gun guy. And they have sort of an encounter with some guns at a shooting range, and he ends up giving Kersey a gun, which Kersey then uses to take out the criminals in New York on the streets. And it becomes this gigantic thing, this phenomenon in New York, where the cops are trying to figure out who this vigilante is, and it's it just becomes this whole newsworthy, crazy event thing that's happening in New York. And I think that part of it is really intriguing to me, because I mean, we still see this sort of thing today, but it's interesting to see how people are talking about it at parties in the movie. Everybody's talking about this vigilante, and it's this big, he's almost like Batman or something, really. But yeah, so fascinating movie, interesting to see where it goes, and I won't talk about that specifically, but this is a brand new Dolby Vision HDR master from a 4K scan of the original camera negative, and it looks very good. Really, really nice transfer. There's certain film stocks in the 70s that have a little bit more grain, and I think this film has that. A lot of it is shot at night, so I think you need sometimes more high contrast type stock to get what you need, but it looks very good, and I was very impressed with it. The music is composed by and performed by Herbie Hancock, which I always thought was really neat. And one of the things that comes out in the wonderful commentary track that's included here by author Paul Talbot, who has become like the guy for Bronson movies, because he wrote several books on Bronson. Bronson is Loose. I think Bronson is Loose Again. New York-based guy who I've talked about before, does a really nice job with commentaries. They're very detailed. I'll get to him in a second. But one of the things that comes out in that commentary is that there's an actress, Sonia Manzano, who is famously from Sesame Street. She played Maria on Sesame Street. She's in the movie briefly as a checker at a grocery store. Apparently she was dating Michael Winner at the time. She was a big fan of Herbie Hancock's album Headhunters, and so she gave that to Michael Winner, and then he used that, sort of liked it, and was like, and I think she even said you should hire him to do the score, and he did. And so I think that's kind of cool that he got used, and it's a good score. It's good, eerie, atmospheric score from Herbie Hancock. He does some really interesting things with percussion. Anyway, so let's talk about, again, the commentary. Paul Talbot, solid as always. Lots and lots of details throughout about the production, about the cast and crew. He also likes to highlight locations, like this building is at this address, so you could go check out some of the Death Wish locations based on what he's saying. He's can't identify everything, but he does get a lot of them, and that's, I think, really cool. There's a lot of real life exteriors used in New York for this film. He also notes some differences between the novel and the film, and it's just really well done and pretty nonstop. There aren't a lot of pauses, and dead air in it. He really does a nice job. And I think all the commentaries I've heard of his on Bronson films have been great, and this is no exception. So that's very cool. And then it's the only feature on this disc. Oh, sorry. There's also an interview with actor John Hirschfeld, which is very cool as well. Short interview with him included. This set includes both a 4K and a Blu-ray, and it's definitely worth picking up. I was very excited to see this get announced, and I highly recommend Death Wish for the Bronson fans out there. There's not enough Bronson in 4K just yet, and I want to say this is one of the early Bronson releases in 4K, and I'm very excited about it. So that's Death Wish. Now, next up we have the 1969 version of The Italian Job. This would go on to be remade in 2003 with Mark Wahlberg, but this is the original with Michael Caine and Noel Coward, and it is a real gem. It is a real blast of a 60s heist movie. It's all about an ex-con, Charlie Croker, played by Michael Caine, who's just got out of prison, and one of his friends has attempted a high-risk job in Torino, Italy, right under the nose of the mafia, and Charlie's friend fails, so Charlie takes over the job, and he decides that he's going to use 3 Mini Coopers and a couple of Jaguars and a bus, and he hopes to sort of cause this huge traffic jam in Torino and bring traffic to a standstill and steal a fortune in gold and escape in the chaos. So it's a really neat heist movie on that level, in that you have all the aspects of a heist movie. You have the getting the crew together, you have the training with the cars, and the cars are really the stars of the movie. It's a really memorable 60s film in both the energy and the color, and this is a great transfer. This transfer looks beautiful. It's a brighter movie than Death Wish, so you really feel the new HDR Dolby Vision Master, also presented by Paramount here. Really looks great from 4K scan to the original camera negative. And it's just, like I said, a really iconically 60s movie, and a lot of fun. I'm a big Michael Caine fan. This is one of his sort of signature 60s films. Noel Coward is great in this as well. Benny Hill is in the film. There's some great stunt driving throughout, and it's just a blast. Like, it's just a lot of fun. I'm a really big fan of heist movies in general, but this is among my favorites, and this is a really great release because it includes not only that new scan, but it includes multiple commentary tracks and a bunch of extra features. So in terms of the commentary tracks, we get an audio commentary by screenwriter Troy Kennedy Martin and Matthew Field, the author of The Making of the Italian Job, and he'll come up later. And then another audio commentary by producer Michael Dealey and Matthew Field, who also apparently wrote Michael Caine, You're a Big Man. So books about Caine and Italian Job. He's a great expert in this field, and he does a nice job of getting of moderating the screenwriter. And there's some great stories about how the film came to be and how he got the idea and stuff like that. This comes out in some of the other features in the film as well. The film, by the way, shot by Douglas Slocum, who did the Raiders movies and a bunch of beautiful looking films from the 70s. Really great DP, and again, the transfer highlights his work really well. Just great color throughout, just really a neat presentation and a neat film. In terms of the rest of the supplements on this disc, now the 2 commentaries are included on the 4K, but the Blu-ray has the rest of this stuff and the commentaries, obviously. There's the Self-Preservation Society of The Making of the Italian Job, which is a 2002 documentary, 1 hour and 26 minutes, featuring interviews with Michael Caine, Derek Ware, John Clive, Frank Jarvis. Some of these are actors in the film. Robert Evans, producer, Peter Bart, Remy Julien, Troy and Ian Kennedy Martin, Hazel and Tara Collinson, Douglas Slocum, Quincy Jones, who did the music on this one, really great music, Maggie Bly, and more. So a really nice overview and making of the film, an hour and 26 minutes, a full feature-length documentary that gives you plenty of cool information about all aspects of the production, the planning of it, the writing of it, the stunts, the actors. Really neat to see Michael Caine reflecting on the film. I dug that a lot. So that's a great one. On top of that, we have the next doc, The Great Idea from 2002. Documentary. It's 23 minutes, 25 seconds. Now, this is in SD. I can't remember if Self-Preservation Society was also SD. It might have been. So these are ported over from DVD, apparently, the special edition of the DVD. But this is with writer Troy Kennedy Martin, producer Michael Dealey, Hazel Collinson, DP Douglas Slocum, actor Frank Jarvis, and production designer Disley Jones, among others, I think. Talking about the idea for the film and how that sort of came together. Very neat. Well, there's some crossover with the original, the hour and 26-minute doc, but sort of expanding on more the development of the actual idea. And then we have Get a Bloomin' Move On from 2002 documentary that's 24 minutes and 22 seconds, also SD. And this is a doc about the Mini Coopers and the stunt driving in the film. Again, Douglas Slocum, second unit director Philip Ressler, Frank Jarvis, and others from the previous doc are here talking about Remy Julien, the stunt driver, and the car stunts in general. And it's fascinating to look at and see just they do all kinds of crazy cool stuff in the movie with the Mini Coopers, and that sort of is the signature of the film ultimately, is those cars. And it's pretty neat, I gotta say, and really shows them off well and makes you want to own one. But so it's neat to see them talking about the stunt driving, and that sort of rolls into the next doc, which is a 2009 thing called Mini Adventures. That's about 17 minutes and 17 seconds. Now, this is in HD, and it's all about the Mini Cooper car itself. There's sort of a brief history from designer Alec Ignatius in 1959 coming out with the car and how much of a phenomenon it was, and then, of course, how it tied into the Italian Job. But it includes interviews with drivers from the movie Italian Job, Russ Swift, Barry Cox, and David Salomon, and then Tara Collinson, the son of the director, who has now become a Mini Cooper racing driver, I guess. And a lot of it is contemporary footage of Russ Swift and Cox and Salomon driving and doing little stunts with the Coopers, and just them talking about the cars in general and their responsiveness and how great they were for this film, and in general how much cool stuff you can do with them. So that's Mini Adventures. And then there is a deleted scene with commentary from Matthew Field. Again, this is about 2 minutes long. The only deleted scene in the film, apparently they used everything else, but they cut this scene, and it's called the Blue Danube sequence. And it's a beautiful sequence of the Mini Cooper cars and some cop cars inside a giant warehouse, almost like airplane hangar type thing. And they're driving around each other in sort of a ballet waltzing pattern with a band playing the Blue Danube Waltz. And I can't remember where this fits in the film, but they show you sort of the beginning and end, sort of where it would have come in and gone into the film. But it's a beautiful sequence, and it's unfortunate that it was cut because there's lots of great angles, there's overhead shots, and lots of great driving. 3 cars each, 3 Coopers and 3 cop cars just zipping around each other. Really cool stuff. A nice little deleted scene. So that is it for Italian Job. Again, Blu-ray and 4K included, but definitely 2 nice 4K releases to kick off 2023 from Kino Lorber in Death Wish and The Italian Job. Both recommended, both good-looking transfers with nice extras. So that is it for this round. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.